Hello, I'm Ruth Cohn, and I want to talk to you about nothing. And you may think, wow, that sounds boring. There's nothing to say about nothing, but actually, I have a lot to say about nothing. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had a client come into your office and they don't even know why they're there, and they say, nothing happened to me. In fact, I've never really been able to stay in therapy very long, or wanted to stay in therapy very long, because there was nothing to talk about. I mean, nothing happened to me. There's no reason why I should feel bad. And I have nothing to complain about, except I really feel bad. Well, the word nothing began to stick in my mind because I kept hearing it. And I began to realize that they were telling me about their history of childhood neglect, and that neglect is the story of nothing, and all the things that didn't happen, that should have happened, that needed to have happened, that developmentally children need. And that is what I came to understand we need to help them with. And that is what I became interested in studying, and have been studying and writing and teaching and working with for the last 25 years. I want to start by telling you a story. My mother died about 20 years ago, and when she did, my father was beside himself with grief. And he was a really traumatized man. He was a survivor of the Nazi Holocaust. So when my mother died, and my father was so kind of catatonic with grief, he asked my sisters and me to call everyone to let them know that my mom had died. One of the people on my list of people to call was my father's memoir writing teacher. Now, he'd been in the group for 5 years working on his memoir. Every week they'd go to group, they'd share what they had written, read it out loud to the group, and they all really knew a lot about each other's lives. So I called this woman who was the leader of the group, and I said to her, you know, this is Ruth Cohn. I'm the daughter of Hans Cohn, and I wanted to let you know that our mom died. And she said to me, oh, she said, I didn't know he had a daughter. And I said, he has 3. And I felt almost like a ghost. And I started thinking about all the ghosts that are floating around in their parents' lives, kind of invisible. And that is another window into this subject area, which was already an important subject area to me. The world of childhood neglect, where the child is one way or another not on the parent's radar, not on the parent's screen. I want to tell you a little bit about how my journey began of working with neglect. My whole practice was working with women survivors of childhood sexual abuse. This was in the early 1990s. And many of my survivor clients had partners, even spouses. And many of them complained about how their spouses didn't get it, didn't understand, particularly around sex, and how they were kind of hounding them for sex and not understanding how they were so compelled and sad and preoccupied with their trauma. And so I thought, well, I need to do something about this. I need to bring in these partners and teach them about trauma and sexual abuse. So I need to make these, most of them were men, I need to make these men into better support for my clients. So I decided I had a great idea. I would have one-day workshops for male partners of women who had been sexually abused in childhood. So I put out my little flyer and I got a response from 8 men. And so here I was in my office with 8 men. So 8 men and me in this little office for a whole day for me to teach them about childhood sexual abuse and what trauma recovery was like for their wives. So they come in, I get this group of men. They were really accomplished. I had a physician and an author of many books who was a professor. I had an electrician, a tech guy, all kinds of really accomplished, smart, attractive, charismatic, interesting men. So we go around the circle, as one often does in a one-day workshop, and I ask them, so tell me about yourself. And they invariably, one after another, they would answer by talking about their wife. And I thought, wow, how interesting. I ask you about you, and you respond by talking about someone else. What is that? And I began to familiarize myself with this repetitive theme. There is no me. And I began to get very interested in that. And there were some really common threads that I started to see in these men that I began to put together as what I came to call over time the neglect profile. So these men, their lives were all about making the money to support the therapy, putting up with this person who had no time for them, who had no attention for them, who had no bandwidth for anything but their healing work and their big emotions and their ups and downs that I was facilitating in their therapy. And they were managing households, managing finances, supporting, children, doing all this infrastructure work that was behind the scenes of trauma therapy. And they were invisible. And I started to see, as I learned about their history, that they'd always been invisible. So I began collecting data. What I failed to mention was, at the end of the day, they were all so gripped, so compelled by being sort of pushed into talking about themselves that they asked me, can we have an ongoing group? And I thought, wow, okay. And so we started to meet every week. That group, those men, stayed together in a weekly support therapy group for 18 years. One of our members even died of cancer during that 18-year time. They became sort of like the test tube where I began to learn that neglect is traumatic in itself. And all that I knew about attachment theory became the underpinning for what became a whole vocabulary and a whole theoretical approach to working with neglect. And I want to give you something really practical to take with you as I began to put together this neglect profile. And the first one is, and I'm going to give you 2 really practical pieces that you can take with you. One of them is a very characteristic shrug and an urgent, almost cry, almost plea, where they'll say, I don't know what to do. There's nothing I can do. What do I do? And this profound helplessness, hopelessness, not knowing what to do. And that is a window into a childhood where there was nowhere to turn. There was no one to ask, but most of all, there was no other to reach out to and say, Mama, what is that? What do I do? Help me. There was none of that. Here's the trap. As helpers, what we want to do is step in and suggest things and problem solve and help them figure out what to do. And what I want you to take away with you is, and you know the story about the guy who falls into the same hole over and over and over again. Well, I fell into that hole enough times that I want you not to fall into that hole. And also, this is where you can really both spot the neglect survivor and help them very concretely, very quickly. You don't start suggesting things, even if you have brilliant ideas about what they can do, because they will be enraged. They will think, what do you think? I never thought of that. It's like the client I had who was a healthcare provider herself, really accomplished, and she also was vastly overweight, and she would go to the doctor and they would say, you just need to exercise more and eat less. And she would be enraged. She would be incensed. She knew that. They will be annoyed, angry, enraged, frustrated, insulted if you suggest things, even if it sounds like that is what they're pleading for, even if you have great ideas. Here's what you do. What they're really trying to communicate to you is the desperate aloneness of that child, the desperate self-reliance that was thrust upon them way too soon, and they didn't know what to do, and they didn't know where to turn, and they felt desperate, at sea, urgency, which is what you're hearing. So what do? You validate, like, wow, that must feel awful, feeling so alone and helpless and powerless and unable. That must be miserable for you. I really get the agony that you feel. And if you can do that, you're giving them something they never got, which is, first of all, you're seeing, you're hearing, you're empathizing, you're understanding. That really helps. And because they're activated, they're in their trauma, they're, if you're going to use a word that I hate to use, they're triggered into their material. You're speaking to that. You're helping them with that. As you empathize with that, they settle down. They come back into their left brain awareness. They become able to think. They may or may not choose from there to problem solve with you, or they may get more in touch with their own knowing more what to do than they had initially felt. All that notwithstanding, something very practical that you can do, that you can utilize with these clients. Another one, and I call it a dead giveaway, because there's some kind of deadness associated with it. And if you're a couples therapist, you will hear spouses complain about this in their partners. It's like an aha for everyone. And it's what I call the 3 P's of neglect. And they are the following: passivity, procrastination, and paralysis. They fail to initiate, they don't follow through, and they collapse. They have a hard time completing things, most of all in the interpersonal. And their partners complain about this, about how they're plagued with this difficulty about starting and finishing things. And you want to validate it because it makes sense in terms of the understimulated brain of the child of neglect. That the way that agency gets evolved and developed is through the resonance, through the interplay, right hemisphere to right hemisphere of the mother's brain and the infant's brain. And when there's not enough of that, that child's brain develops under firing, too slow. So there's a kind of slowness. It shows itself in attention issues. Their partners complain they forget things, or their attention isn't focused and clear. They can't help it. They do have an under-focused, under-firing brain. And to validate and understand that that is about lack of attention, lack of attunement, lack of mirroring, lack of resonance, lack of stimulation of the default mode network, that part of the brain where the sense of self and agency and energetic resolve to act begins to grow. And if we empathize with them, there's less shame and there's less blame from others. And it becomes the beginning of something else, where maybe there's more compassion, more understanding, and more help for this understimulated, underfiring, rather collapsed, very competent person. I leave you with those two very practical pieces, and I invite you to join me in more exploration of this wide world, this vast space. It's like outer space of emptiness, of nothing, which is neglect. I have created a course with the Academy of Therapy Wisdom where I really deepen and broaden and expand into these various topics. As you can probably tell, I'm impassioned. There's a whole world of people who have basically been invisible in plain sight, a vast world of clients or potential clients who really need someone who can help them recognize what's wrong. They think there's nothing to explain their ennui or their loneliness or their relationship difficulties or their isolation or their sensitivity about things like rejection and criticism and abandonment. And they need people like us to recognize and to help them. They've slipped through the cracks their entire lives. Our field has neglected them. I want to help you learn to recognize them so they can come into view. They can get the help that they've never gotten, and they can get seen and heard and understood in a way they never have. And now, thankfully, in the larger world, we have a category at last of trauma-informed. We have trauma-informed psychotherapy. We have trauma-informed not only mental health, but medical health, but education, but journalism, but social justice. The whole concept of trauma and trauma-informed has permeated the culture and is part of daily vocabulary. I would like so much, my passion has become so much, to do the same with neglect-informed. So I'm teaching about neglect-informed psychotherapy, and I invite you to join me in this study and in this work of the developmental trauma of childhood neglect, how we can help people discover that their experience of nothing is not nothing.